Dragon materials are essential for upgrading certain pieces of armor, but boy are they a pain to farm. So today we're going to take a detailed look at exactly how the 4 dragons work here in Tears of the Kingdom. I'll point out the specific location of where you could find each dragon, the path they travel across the game's map, and how long that ride lasts, what exactly the dragon materials can be used for, and the mechanics behind farming dragon materials. Let's not waste any more time and get right into it. First things first, farming dragon materials at a rapid pace is no longer possible like it was in Breath of the Wild, where you could get a material, rest at a fire until morning, then get another material, rinse and repeat until you have enough to sell and get thousands and thousands of rupees in under an hour. Dragons no longer have a set path based on what time it is, so resting at a fire does not change the position of the dragons any longer. They just continue along their set path no matter what time it is. After shooting the dragon and collecting the material it drops, there is now a 10-minute wait before you could shoot the dragon again to get another material, and as far as we know right now, there's no way around that 10-minute timer. So sadly, you'll have to unlearn what you have learned from Breath of the Wild. Luckily, I'll show you exactly what armor upgrades you can get with each dragon's materials, so you could judge for yourself before spending an hour or two grinding for a dragon's parts. Each dragon has a set path. Farosh, Dinraal, and Naydra will travel from the depths to the surface through a giant chasm, fly over the surface world for a bit, then return back to the depths through another chasm, and finally the path loops from there. However, the light dragon only flies through the surface world and the sky, but on 2 slightly different paths depending on your progress through the game. In the case of Farosh, Dinraal, and Naydra, it's recommended that you wait outside of a specific chasm, and they will always appear there eventually if you wait long enough. Light Dragon is a bit more tricky, as we'll get into later in the video. Let's begin with Farosh. Farosh emerges from the East Gerudo Chasm, located here. So wait just outside of the chasm like this, and then when it appears, jump on. Unlike in Breath of the Wild, you could stand on and ride every dragon as it flies through its set path. After emerging from the chasm, Farosh then flies through the sky until it reaches the Hills of Balmer Chasm about 16 minutes later, where it flies back into the depths. It flies through the depths for about 19 minutes before reaching the East Gerudo Chasm again, and it repeats the exact same loop at the exact same speed forever. In total, I timed the complete route for Farosh at approximately 35 minutes. In other words, you'll have to wait outside of East Gerudo Chasm for 35 minutes at most before the dragon appears. Keep in mind, some of these times I have might be slightly off, since I did pause the game and collect some dragon materials that stopped the clock and thus stopped the dragon's movement for a few seconds, but it should be just about identical for you. Keep in mind that when you ride Farosh, he shoots these balls of electricity at you. They're pretty easy to avoid if you just stand behind one of his horns here, but I'd recommend bringing some healing items just in case he shocks you too many times. You could also wear any armor or eat any meal that offers level 3 shock resistance, and they will not be able to hit you. Remember, waiting outside of the chasm in the Gerudo Desert also requires heat resistance during the day and cold resistance at night. Basically, if you want to farm dragons, make sure you have armor or meals that are good at resisting the elements. Once you mount a dragon, you can either slash it with a sword or use your bow to get it to drop a material. I personally prefer to use the bow. When a dragon plops a material out, it'll stop glowing until the invisible 10-minute timer is up, at which point it will glow brightly again, which means you could shoot it for another material. If you're quick and precise, you should be able to shoot the body part that generates a material and pick it up before it flies off into the distance, which allows you to collect your material and stand on the dragon again as you wait for the invisible 10-minute timer to expire. This could be done for 4 dragon materials: the scale, which appears when you shoot its body, the fang, which appears when you shoot its mouth, the claw, which appears when you shoot its claw, and the horn, which appears when you shoot the horn on its head. There are also about 10 shards of the dragon spikes that can be picked up that appear around their spikes. Ultimately, you should be able to collect all of the materials you need from only 1 or 2 rides on the dragon. The only materials that don't obey the 10-minute timer rule is the shards of the dragon spikes, which seem to respawn like regular materials. If you can't find the amount you need, I'd recommend going to do something else for a while and then returning back to the dragon after some time has passed. Every time I waited outside of the chasm and jumped back onto the dragon, the spikes had respawned also. In total, for Farosh, we need to collect 3 Farosh scales, 3 Farosh claws, 3 Farosh fangs, 3 Farosh horns, and 15 shards of Farosh's spike. These are used to upgrade the Cap of the Wild and the Fierce Deity boots. For a total of 12 dragon materials, that means a minimum wait of 120 minutes or 2 hours to collect them all in one go. As for the spikes, if you don't pick up enough to upgrade your armor of choice, you may need to come back to the dragon again later after some time has passed and the spikes can respawn. Next up is Dinraal. Dinraal emerges from the East Akala Plains chasm located here. After emerging from the chasm, Dinraal then flies through the sky until it reaches the Drennan Highlands chasm about 23 minutes later, and at that point it flies back into the depths. It flies through the depths for about 25 minutes before reaching the East Akala Plains chasm again, where it repeats the exact same loop. In total, I timed the complete route for Dinraal at about 48 minutes. In other words, you'll have to wait outside of East Akala Plains chasm for 48 minutes at most before the dragon appears. As you can see, the dragons each have different routes that last different lengths. Keep in mind that when you ride Dinraal, he is hot, so you need to wear armor or eat a meal that provides flame guard if you want to ride him. I wore my Flamebreaker boots and helm. In total, for Dinraal, we need to collect 3 Dinraal scales, 3 Dinraal claws, 3 Dinraal fangs, 3 Dinraal horns, and 15 shards of Dinraal spike. These are used to upgrade the Trousers of the Wild and the Fierce Deity mask. Next is Naydra. Naydra emerges from the Naydra Snowfield chasm located here. After emerging from the chasm, Naydra then flies through the sky until it reaches the East Hill chasm about 18 minutes later, where it flies back into the depths. It flies through the depths for about 11 minutes before reaching the Naydra Snowfield chasm again, and it repeats the exact same loop. In total, I timed the complete route for Naydra at approximately 30 minutes. In other words, you'll have to wait outside of Naydra Snowfield chasm for 30 minutes at most before the dragon appears. That's right, of the 4 dragons, Naydra's route is by far the shortest. So if you need to get your hands on any dragon's horn quickly to use for cooking one of those awesome meals that last for 30 minutes, I'd recommend waiting for Naydra outside of the Naydra Snowfield chasm, as it will appear the quickest of them all. Keep in mind, when you ride Naydra, he is cold, so you need to wear armor or eat a meal that provides cold resistance if you want to ride him. I wore my Vamedo Divine Helm and had a magic rod attached to a ruby for additional warmth. In total, for Naydra, we need to collect 3 Naydra scales, 3 Naydra claws, 3 Naydra fangs, 3 Naydra horns, and 15 shards of Naydra's spike. These are used to upgrade the Tunic of the Wild and the Fierce Deity armor. Last but certainly not least is the Light Dragon, which operates entirely differently from the other 3 dragons. The path the Light Dragon travels will actually change depending on your progress through the game. If you haven't completed the Recovering the Hero Sword main quest, the Light Dragon will be very high in the sky, mostly around the Sky Islands on the map. If you're still this early in the game, I'd recommend waiting at this spot here, facing east on the Great Sky Island where we start the game. Eventually, it'll appear and you'll be able to glide over to the Light Dragon. As you can see, I was able to get on the Light Dragon with my early game save that had the absolute minimum amount of stamina, though it did take some stamina meals to get there. When you play through the Recovering the Hero Sword quest, the exact location of the Light Dragon will appear highlighted on your map. You could use this to your advantage and grind all the light dragon materials you need right then and there. But just know that once you've completed this quest, the light dragon's path changes. It will now fly much lower to the ground of the surface. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a great place to just sit and wait for it to appear, so I bring to you another strategy. The light dragon, unlike the other 3 dragons, does not travel underground. It just stays on the surface and travels in a giant loop around the whole map. This loop is far longer than the other dragons. According to my calculations, it clocks in at exactly 2 hours. So I wouldn't want to just wait at one spot for this one, as I enjoy keeping my sanity intact. Instead, as the light dragon loops around the map, it travels closely to every single tower in the game. So what I do when I need to find it is travel to a tower and fly up into the sky. I rotate the camera around and look closely for the dragon. If it's not there, I travel to the next closest tower and repeat the process. Eventually, you should spot the light dragon near one of these towers. When making this video, I found the light dragon right near the Typhlo Ruins Skyview tower after launching myself into the sky. You really can't miss it. After all, it is a gigantic dragon flying through the sky. Thankfully, once you find it, the grind for materials is a bit easier for the light dragon. In total, we need to collect 2 light dragon scales, 2 light dragon talons, 2 light dragon fangs, and 2 light dragon horns. These are used to upgrade the champion's leathers. You can also attach light dragon materials to your weapons to give yourself a healing effect when you hit an enemy. It's kinda neat, but I'm not a huge fan of attaching a material as valuable as this to a weapon that is gonna break after a few uses. And with that, you now know everything there is to know about farming dragon materials here in Tears of the Kingdom. Over time, you'll probably be needing dragon horns the most to enhance your meals to last a whopping 30 minutes. And again, for that purpose specifically, I'd recommend farming Naydra. Its loop is the shortest, which means it'll pop up out of the Naydra Snowfield Chasm faster, on average, than any other dragon. If you like this video and want to see more Tears of the Kingdom guides and content, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more videos in the works just like this one, where I'll go into detail about farming valuable materials. So look forward to more soon, but until next time, thanks so much for watching everyone, and take care.